Hi, my name is Morten Jensen from the NBA show, and today I'll be talking to you about LeBron James and whether or not he should win the MVP this year. Stay tuned. So before I start, I want to touch on what happened last season. The media tried to shoehorn LeBron James into the MVP conversation, and it was a problem. Giannis Antetokounmpo had arguably a top 3 season since the 1976 NBA-ABA merger. I mean, we're talking dominance to the full extent. His statistical accomplishments, what he did in the regular season, it was unprecedented. LeBron James had nothing, no argument to be named MVP. Thankfully, he didn't. So I think it's really important to note that last year, in terms of MVP candidacy, LeBron ended on a sour note. Now, again, this is really important. That's not on him, that's on the media. And I think unfairly so, a lot of people tried to put that blame on LeBron personally and as a player. That, to me, is completely sideways. He was in no control of that narrative. It wasn't created by him or his team. This was a narrative created by the Lakers themselves, the media, and people having an axe to grind against Giannis. I'm not really sure what that whole thing was about because it was ludicrous. It was absolutely ridiculous. This year, however, we don't have as dominant a season in the NBA as Giannis had last year. The field is a little bit more wide. Giannis is in the conversation, Nikola Jokic is in the conversation, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, and LeBron himself, of course. Now the question is, because the playing field is more level, does that mean that the media narrative of LeBron is going to rise again and give him a potentially unfair advantage? I'm not saying he's underserving. The guy is averaging over 25 points a game and almost 8 and 8 in terms of rebounding and assists. And he's playing better defense this year, much like he did last year, but he did take that 5-year break of playing defense and he's gotten back from that. And he's now an aggressive defensive player. That matters. His Lakers are 24 and 11 as I'm recording this video. That's a huge argument in the favor of him winning the MVP. But is he the best candidate? Could we argue that Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid in particular, as well as Kawhi Leonard, are having better seasons? Yes, we can. Jokic, for example, is having just one hell of a year. Joel Embiid is playing on both ends of the floor, and he is doing everything for the Philadelphia 76ers at the center position, defending the rim, rebounding, scoring damn near 30, high efficiency. And I think it's time to recognize that maybe, just maybe, the days of LeBron James dominating in the regular season compared to his counterparts might be over. I understand there is a need to give LeBron this type of legacy award. You kind of want to send him off with an MVP before he gets too old to really get back into the grind of things where he can be an MVP candidate year in and year out. I mean, let's face it, the guy is going to play until he's like 45, so he's going to be relevant for at least a couple more years, but it's fair to assume that he won't be necessarily an MVP candidate when he reaches that age. It's fair to assume that we're looking at some of the last years in which you can legitimately make an argument for his case. And that's why there's such a rush to hand him this award. But should that really be the merit? I don't think it's fair to LeBron James that you give him an award he may not have deserved. I think that's wrong. I think that is not something that is presenting him in a positive light, and I think it's something you put onto him, which is not fair. You look, there is going to be so much debate in terms of who is deserving of this award when everything is said and done, and it's something that's going to last for years. Let's assume that Nikola Jokic just takes another leap during the course of this season and he becomes just as dominant as Giannis Antetokounmpo was last year. Just a theoretical. Would it then be fair to hand the award to LeBron instead of Jokic, assuming, of course, we agreed that Jokic's improved play would lead to more Denver wins, so they're somewhat comparable in the wins-lost columns because that matters? I would argue no, it's not fair to Nikola Jokic or anyone else of that matter. And again, I cannot overemphasize this. It would put LeBron in a bad situation that he has not created. Look, LeBron is one of the most scrutinized players of all times, undeservingly so. The guy is objectively great. He is one of the best players of all time. Some even have him as number one. It's just not okay to push an award onto him that's undeserving. That's going to sully his reputation, and that's not something any player would want to know, like looking back at their careers and know that they won an award that they were not deserving of. Now again, yes, LeBron might be deserving. He's in the conversation for a reason, so I'm not ruling out the fact that in a couple months, he'll be the front runner for MVP, and deservingly so. But it's also just worth noting that when you have a media narrative that's building in the way that it usually does, it's fair to assume that's going to repeat itself this year. And the last thing we should do is try to get in on that debate and hype up a player, LeBron or otherwise, who isn't deserving of the award. I could replace the name LeBron James and insert any other player who would be the theoretical frontrunner who wouldn't be deserving, and I would have the same issue. I don't think it's fair to the player. I don't think it's okay to push a narrative over a player just for your own personal satisfaction. One thing is All-Star. Like, you could mention that isn't really as important as one major individual award, especially MVP, which is like the top award you can get from the regular season. But like Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki made All-Star teams in their last seasons as sort of like special invitees from the NBA, and that was a legacy thing. The NBA wanted to show appreciation because they were in their last years, and they made All-Star teams despite their seasons being woefully undeserving of being All-Stars. But because it's a fun event, people joined in and said, yeah, that's fine, that's cool. But if we're being really, really harsh, you could look back at those All-Star games that they played in and look at the last one and go, well, that's undeserving. It's undeserving that they got All-Star nods. Of course, because they were additions to the roster, it's fine because they didn't take the place of anyone else. When you look at it through that lens, it becomes more of a fun issue. MVP, however, is a little bit different. There's only one award every single season, and it goes to, at least that's the theory, the best player of that season. Now, I'm not as naive to say that narrative doesn't matter. Narrative always matters. There's a reason Derrick Rose won his MVP in 2011 as the youngest ever. And I'm not saying necessarily he was undeserving, but you could definitely make the argument that both Dwight Howard and LeBron James had better cases to be made. That said, we need to figure out a way to do things earnestly, while also taking note of the extraordinary situation that we have with LeBron James. What he's doing at this age is spectacular. It's unprecedented. And that's why I think we have this need of showing him additional appreciation. We want to showcase firsthand that this guy is doing something we've never seen before. He is doing something at an age that shouldn't be possible. So we're desperate to give him his due. And that's nice. But yeah, it's still a tricky situation, right? You need to figure out how to balance that level of appreciation with also giving the guy most deserving of the MVP that award. Again, if it turns out to be LeBron, fine, then everything works out and it was all meant to be. Great, thumbs up. But I do not want to see at the end of this regular season LeBron's status getting hyped up if it's very, very clear to all of us that he did not have the best season compared to his other co-candidates. That would be unfair to them, it would be unfair to LeBron to put that on him, and we would be doing everyone a disservice by voting for a player who isn't deserving. And that's not just LeBron. We wouldn't be doing anyone any favors of voting them in for anything if they weren't deserving. And yes, we aren't voters per se, but I think the fact that we, the NBA community, drive conversation, we drive narratives, we are a part of the whole machinery, our voices matter. And I think it's so important that we make sure that the guy we want to win MVP is the guy who's most deserving, whoever that is. Honestly, at this point, I find it difficult to see LeBron as the frontrunner for MVP this year. I just do. I don't think he's played at the same level of some of the other guys that I've brought up. That said, I am still equally impressed by his production as you are and as everyone else is. It's unfathomable how good he is at this age. So maybe it's on us to tell the NBA that we want to see LeBron get some level of appreciation, some sort of acknowledgement for the year that he's had without getting the primary award if someone else is more deserving. That's all I'm saying. So Lakers fans, you can trash me in the comments if you want, but right now I think it's really important that we actually keep a steady look at the MVP race. And right now LeBron is not the frontrunner. He shouldn't be. He is a candidate for sure, but to say that he's the clear-cut favorite or to put him top of the pile just because, that's a slippery slope. And I think it would be a really bad choice to go down that road, not just for LeBron, but for future reference. So what if we decide that that's just the way we hand out MVPs now, to the guy we like the most? That's not how it should work. It should go to the guy who put in the work, put up the production, and helped his team win, all of which can be said of numerous players this year as well. Objectivity. We needed just a little bit more to really understand what's at stake here. And for LeBron, I think it's also doing him a service that we value him and identify his components and his talent in the right light. Giving him something he might be undeserving of, that's not fair to him.